How's it going, everyone? This is Matt coming to you live from my secret headquarters, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, we'll be talking about something that has been on my mind for the past few years, which is the fear that movie theaters are dying out. I don't mean movies in general. I'm talking about just theaters that you go in person, sit in a chair with like 100 other folks, and you watch a movie. Those kind of theaters. So, let's recap a bit. Back in 2019, it felt like movies were hotter than they've ever been. I would go to theater with my family or friends all the time to catch the latest and greatest. But even then, it seemed like things were starting to go downhill. Like, for example, my local movie theater closed down around this time, and the parking lot is now a ghost town. But fast forward a bit, and as all of you probably know, the world shut down in March 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I still remember the day when it was first announced that No Time to Die, which was the new 007 movie that was coming out, had been delayed all the way to November 2020 and soon to be pushed back until following October. This was something no one's ever seen before, but after that announcement of that delay, all the other movies that were supposed to be released in the spring of 2020 were starting to get delayed left and right. Some movies were pushed back several months, others were pushed back almost a whole year, like I think Fast and Furious were supposed to. And some were on an indefinite release date, which was torture. For instance, Top Gun Maverick was initially supposed to release in the summer of 2022, but after all this happened, it got shelved, and it wasn't until April of 2022 that came out and took home almost $1.5 billion at the box office. The spring and summer of 2020 was quiet for movie theaters. Due to the pandemic trapping everyone in their homes, it made the general audience transition into streaming. Granted, streaming services were already big. Wait, scratch that. Streaming services were already huge at the time, with new services being created, most notably Disney Plus, which was first launched in November of 2019 and launched alongside exclusive content, which included Mandalorian. But when movie theaters were no longer an option, streaming was the next best and most convenient option. Big blockbuster movie companies noticed the success for streaming and took it to their advantage. Most notably was Warner Bros. For 2021, Warner Bros. And HBO Max made a deal that was awesome for subscribers, but terrifying for people like me who love going to the theaters. You wonder what that deal was? That deal was that Warner Bros. Big movies of 2021 would launch on HBO Max day and date with their theatrical release in theaters. For example, The Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn, released in theaters on August 6, 2021, and was available for streaming on HBO Max that same very day. The New York Times posted an article about this deal and included quotes from Jason Kilar, sorry if I did not say that correctly, who is the chief executive at Warner Media. I quote, "Like a lot of businesses, theaters are at a tough spot right now," said Kilar. "We are all in the middle of a pandemic and we are trying to figure out our way through it. One of the things we can do is be helpful to them is to provide them with a steady stream of big budget, well-told stories." End quote. I had mixed feelings about this. On one hand, I was like, awesome, let's go. It's really cool that we all get to watch this movies right away. But on the other hand, I thought this was the next step in decline of power for movie theaters around the world. Because why would the general public choose to go out of their homes to a theater and pay money for a ticket and maybe some overpriced snacks and beverages while they're at it, over staying home in a comfy clothes, you're having access to your own food and drinks, the ability to pause the movie at any point of time, and the only price you would have to pay is a subscription to HBO Max, which you might currently already have. It'd be foolish not to choose the latter. But unfortunately, people like me apparently prefer going to the theater to see a new movie. That gives me hope that theaters aren't completely dead yet. The deal, as expected, resulted in movies underperforming at the box office, even if the reviews were well received. On a website called The Escapist, it talks about this, I quote, "It seems safe to acknowledge that the deal didn't work out exactly as AT&T planned. It didn't quite turn HBO Max into a streaming powerhouse. While the decision undoubtedly contributed to HBO Max and it contributed to HBO and HBO Max's combined 12.5 million growth of subscribers in 2021. That is still a significantly slower increase than the 60% growth of Disney Plus subscribers between November 2020 and November 2021, or Netflix's growth from 195 million subscribers in quarter 3 2020 to 214 million subscribers in quarter 3 2021. End quote. But because not many movies were releasing due to a lot of delays and indefinite release dates, this helped the Warner Bros. Movies make profit. I quote from the same article, as other studios strategically withheld the releases to maximize potential box office, Godzilla vs. Kong provided cinemas with an unexpected lifeline. Cinemas need a constant churn of new releases to attract audiences, particularly at a time like this. As of mid-April 2021, 4 of the top 5 films at the domestic box office since the start of the pandemic were Warner Bros. Films. Godzilla vs. Kong remained at the top of the box office for 4 weeks, and in the top 10 for 9 weeks. End quote. But in August 2021, Warner Bros. Committed to a 45-day theatrical exclusive window for 2022 releases, which included movies like The Batman. By the way, great movie. See if you haven't seen it yet. It's phenomenal. In my opinion, I don't think theaters are going away, at least not yet. I know there's been many theaters that have shut down the past few years, which really is actually a shame. Like, it's kind of upsetting. But there's still a decent amount still going strong. And some movies have done extremely well in the box office since COVID. Most notably was Spider-Man No Way Home and Avatar: The Way of Water. Spider-Man took home $1.9 billion at the box office, almost cracking that $2 billion mark. The movie was a monster in the box office. No one would shut up about it. It was annoying. I've had friends tell me they went back to the theater to rewatch the movie a second or even a third time. That's something I haven't personally done in years. So it's so good to see that people are still going back to theaters to rewatch movies. It's such a good sign for theaters these days. And Avatar did make that $2 billion mark by bringing home $2.3 billion, which is insane. After those movies, it's safe to say that companies will continue to pump out more movies in theaters for a little while longer. Alrighty, so now that we have a decent idea of what the actual heck is going on with theaters recently and cinema, let's discuss it. With me, I got John and Liv from the Student Film Association at County College of Morris in New Jersey. I am also involved in this film association, and if you're wondering what a stupid film association that likes to film movies is, let me take 2 minutes of your time to market this club. All right, I'm done advertising the club. I'll throw it to John. What's up, John?
How you doing? I'm John Martinez. I'm the vice president of the Student Film Association.
How long have you been watching movies for?
A couple years, I'd say, at least 20.
All right, cool,
At least
cool.
20 years.
All right, we got Liv. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Liv Diagati. I'm the president of Student Film Association.
How long have you been watching movies for?
Probably my whole life, I'd say. About
Cool.
20 years so.
Awesome. All right, so you guys heard what I was talking about movies switching to streaming services, or the fear of it. Do you guys think theaters are going out of business soon, or?
I think it's the beginning of the end for theaters, honestly. Because with the whole streaming thing, it's just there's no way to compete with that.
Exactly. Like, what would you prefer? Do you prefer to spend a buttload of money just for one movie, or spend $10 a month for streaming services with unlimited movies?
I mean, honestly, I do really like going to the theaters, but I don't like how expensive it is. I will agree with that. But the thing is, they're only at that expensive because they're competing with streaming services. They didn't used to be, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
How much longer do you think we got until they're just dead?
Honestly, I don't know. I'd say like maybe 5-10 years max.
How about you, John? What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's not the death of the theater. I think it's the death of the original idea. Because if you look at the movies that are actually doing well in theaters, we have like Endgame, we have Top Gun Maverick, we have like Avatar, which are all $1 billion+ movies.
Yeah, they did killer.
Yeah,
And some of those are after COVID too, so
yeah,
like it really
those are some of those.
it shows that there's still an interest in going to the theater for like.
So people will do it, but you look at the movies that have done it, and you don't see like Banshees of Inisherin that came out, and nobody even knows what that movie is.
I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah, nobody knows what that movie is. It's a fantastic movie, but like 2 people saw it, and then but you have these movies that are doing fantastic, and they're movies that are kind of made to guarantee to make that money back. So like I feel like theaters will probably not die, but studios will probably take a lot less of a risk on these smaller movies that aren't going to make their money back versus movies like Endgame that are going to make $3 billion.
So what you're thinking is that in the future it's going to switch from like basically just the big blockbuster movies going to theaters,
Yeah,
and then all the smaller movies, like the animation, the indie movies, those are going to be just kind of ported right to streaming services.
Yeah, and you kind of see that now anyway. Like you kind of like,
Oh yeah.
like Avatar is like taking up. Like if you look at the show times, Avatar is taking up like 8 theaters, and then you have other movies that are like, oh, watch this on Netflix.
Yeah.
So like I don't know.
Like, they've
the
done
movies
that.
that are doing well in theaters are like obviously the big blockbusters, but I feel like a lot of the reason why they do so well in theaters is because they're all like they come out in theaters first, you know?
Yeah.
Like Endgame and like Avatar, like those were not available like right away on streaming services.
That's why I was kind of afraid of the whole HBO Max deal, because these big blockbuster Warner Bros. Movies, they coming out in theaters day and date with HBO Max. So why would you go into the theater? So
Exactly, yeah.
it really took a toll in the box office.
Which is,
And I think that for a lot of like smaller movies, there's really no point in opening up in a theater, because if you try to open up in a theater first and then wait till it's available on streaming services, you're not getting any like audience to it, so it's not worth it to do that. You're losing money by doing that.
And even now, sorry, were you gonna say something, John?
I was just gonna say like, even that though, like that's where it's like a little risk. Like it's weird because you're just like taking chance, because smaller movies have a higher risk of just losing money. But then you look at like Everything Everywhere All at Once was an A24 movie that was like a smaller movie, and that movie's it like blew up just because of word of mouth and shit.
I think that A24 is one of the ones that are really like almost every single movie they make that comes out in theaters is still being watched. I don't know why it's a specific phenomenon with that studio, but that's one of the only studios that I think is really like dominating theaters still.
They're producing quality. It's
Yeah.
good stuff.
But they still get really good revenue from theaters.
But they also have movies that are like smaller movies,
Yeah.
like movies that people probably never heard of, like Lamb or whatever. I don't know if anybody heard that.
Never heard of it.
Yeah,
I heard
it's
of
like
it.
yeah,
I didn't watch it.
it's a weird movie that probably would have made like $20 at the box office if they released
Yeah.
it. But
But I think a lot of times with theaters too is that like most people now, like people don't just go to theaters, like just to go watch a movie anymore. I feel like a lot of times people are going to theaters like to watch a specific movie. So that's why all these blockbusters are doing a lot better, because like now that streaming services are available, if you want to watch a movie, you go look through a list of movies on a streaming service instead of going to the theater and seeing what's playing, which is what it used to be. So
It's kind of a novelty now.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, oh, let's do this thing. Let's go play mini golf and watch a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a social event now because you're actually going to do it.
Yeah.
Instead,
Yeah.
because everyone's watching stuff nowadays, not just movies but TV shows.
Like they're not necessary to watch movies anymore at all.
Yeah, you don't have to go
Exactly.
to the movie to watch a movie.
Yeah.
Because even though there's still lots of the big movies are coming out to theaters first, I feel like in the past it was always like, oh, I got now like once the movie comes out, you gotta wait like 6 months or so, what it felt like until it came to like DVD and
Yeah.
Blu-ray. But now it's like, for example, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, that came out in November and released to Disney Plus like 2-3 months after. It was crazy
Yeah.
fast.
And some movies are like, they'll release them and then a couple weeks later you can buy them to rent or rent them off YouTube or something.
Oh yeah.
Like they're
Yeah.
already able to be rented.
It's a lot faster now.
But then you have weird movies where like you kind of see it, I guess, a little bit where like even production companies are losing faith in the theater, like with Glass Onion.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah, when that came out, they were like, oh, we're gonna release it in the theater for a week, and then we're gonna put it on Netflix in a month. That's the weirdest marketing decision you could ever make. And that movie, if that movie was getting word of mouth and it was getting like pretty hyped up all over like the socials, so if they left it in the theater, it probably could have made some money.
Yeah, no, it wasn't really too much at the time out. I don't remember. I
Yeah,
think
it
Puss
was-
in Boots was the only other movie I can think of.
And that's another movie that was like word of mouth, just like built it up. Like it was
that
like,
one. It's still in theaters.
yeah,
I
it's
think.
still in theaters. You can rent it. It's like everywhere.
Well, it's not just word of mouth. It's also like a Pixar movie. So
No, it's
yeah.
not DreamWorks.
There's-
It's not. Oh, it's
DreamWorks.
DreamWorks is Pixar, isn't it?
Pixar is Disney. DreamWorks is part of like Universal.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought they were the same company.
they're
In
not.
some way, I thought they were like owned
No,
in some part.
Nope. Not in English.
Not at all.
Nope.
They're not. Are you so sure?
I'm so sure. You can look up after this.
Okay.
But even speaking of
Maybe it's
Disney,
wrong.
like I feel like Disney they took a stab at like releasing content on Disney Plus first, not just shows, but like full on movies. Like Soul came out on Disney Plus,
Oh, Turning Red.
Turning Red.
Disney Plus still isn't. It still hasn't gained that much traction though. Like it's definitely a lot bigger than it was when it first. Because I remember when it first came out, like nobody really wanted to get it. Like nobody was really happy about it. But like it's gaining more traction now because it's kind of being like forced to. Like you have to use it for a lot of things, and that's the only reason people are really like getting Disney Plus is because they have to for
The
certain
exclusive
things.
content.
Yeah,
Because
that's
like
why, 'cause they
all the
made a lot of
Star
content
Wars
exclusive.
shows are going here,
Exactly.
and the Marvel shows, and they said
'Cause
like,
when
oh,
it
you gotta
first-
watch the Marvel shows to understand
Yeah.
all the Marvel movies.
Like when
Oh,
it
yeah.
first got released, like nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted to use it like at all, and that's
Yeah.
I think that was what Disney did with it. Is they just like started making things exclusive on there so people would have to,
Yeah,
and that's also killing a lot of the other stuff too. That's a big deal with that.
and there's so many streaming services now where it's like
Oh,
I
there's
feel
too
just-
many.
that's
I
also
pay
going
so
to kill.
much money.
That's also going to kill
Yeah.
the movie going because it's like there's going to be no theaters in the future, so there's just streaming services. But by then it's going to have like 100 different services.
Yeah, it's
There's-
getting really bad.
Like people aren't going to pay like for like all of those. They're going to have like maybe 3, possibly 4.
I think a lot of them will
Is-
start combining at some point because
They have
since they're a
to.
newer thing, they're all a bunch of different like individual companies. But eventually, bigger like companies will start conglomerating and they'll start buying out other ones.
We kind of
so,
saw that already with DC. Used to have
Yeah,
their own
DC
streaming
Yeah,
service.
Universe
exactly.
or
And
was
then
DC
they-
Universe.
It was like something, and then
Yeah.
they combined with
HBO
Warner Brothers.
Max.
Yeah, HBO.
Yeah,
And-
exactly.
yeah.
That's it's
That
gonna
was
start
more than
happening.
just. Sorry, I was just saying that's more than just movies. It was also like,
It was like-
comics and stuff.
Yeah, it was a whole
Yeah.
bunch of stuff that they
What
just
were you
like.
gonna say, Liv?
I was gonna say I think that's the direction we're heading in, where it's like there's a bunch of different ones now, but people are gonna start getting annoyed with prices and everything, obviously. But I think that they will start buying out, and like eventually we'll end up with like 3 or 4 total.
Is it bad
Hopefully,
though?
at least. I'm more okay with that, to be honest, because I don't want to be paying like I pay so much money in streaming services.
Oh yeah.
Like I literally because I have every single one of them, like every single one in existence. I pay so much goddamn money. It's crazy.
Is it bad though?
Bad in what way?
I'd
Bad
rather
that the
not.
theaters are gonna that they're dying
theaters,
down.
you mean.
Is that necessarily bad?
It's not. It's the way you
I mean,
look
I
at
like
it.
theaters for a novelty. I
Exactly.
hope they stay
Novelty.
around for a
'Cause
novelty at
it's-
least. Because like I do like going to the movie theaters. Honestly, I do wish there was more movies playing though. Because like at this point, it's like it's a hit or miss whether or not there's like good movies playing.
I think at the moment we're still at a good pace of good quality coming out,
Yeah,
but
it's slowing down a lot though.
it is because there's either like a bad movie or it's just like, meh.
Yeah, it's like I feel like it used to be there was like you know.
Oh, there's always movies
always
coming
options
out.
of like good movies playing.
Every
but now
weekend
it's like,
there's a big blockbuster,
Yeah,
whether it's like
exactly.
an animation or
and now it's like there's
live
one
action.
like once a month maybe, and
Oh, yeah.
anytime you look up to go to a theater, there's like 2 or 3 decent movies playing.
The thing is that we still get that, except instead of releasing it at a theater, they're releasing on streaming. So it's like you're still getting these movies or like these properties that are releasing content like every week. There's a new thing, but instead of being in a theater, they're like releasing it on streaming.
I don't know. I mean, for me, I really like going to theaters because, like, I don't like I like the ability to watch movies at home, but like, for me personally, I'd rather like go out to do it. I don't like sitting at home and watching the TV all day. I kind of just feel like wrong doing it at some
It's
point.
also immersive. Like it gets you into like the
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Like you're in like a completely dark room, and you don't even realize there's other people in the theater.
Yeah.
Because like
Exactly,
that
yeah.
happens to me all the time. It's like you like maybe like halfway through the movie, I kind of just like get out of the zone. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's like 100 other people here.
Exactly.
Everyone's
Like, oh,
just quiet.
this is kind of
Like
cool.
I have so many good memories of like, you know, like when I was younger, like some of my favorite movies ever I watched in theaters first, and like just the feeling after the movie was over was like crazy. Like Interstellar is a really good example of that because that movie was like very like you get really invested in just because of the way it was. But I don't know, like watching that in the theaters when it came out was like crazy. Like I will never forget that experience. I felt so weird afterwards.
Yeah.
And like you never really get that anymore. It's like rare now.
That's how I felt watching Hereditary. It was like I saw that in theater, and then I left, and I was like, "What was that movie?" And then I got my friend to go back, and then we left the theater, and he was like, "What was that movie?" And then we
Yeah.
sat in the parking lot talking about it for like 2 hours.
Exactly. I love that.
Mhm.
And it's like I feel like there's a lot of movies that like I'll watch now and I'll be like, I wish I could have watched this in the theater for my first time. I think about that a lot, honestly.
I think the best part about theaters nowadays is going with other people, and not just like your
Yeah.
friends, but other people that are also in the theater watching with you. If you
Exactly.
go back to like Spider-Man No Way Home or Avengers Endgame, like everyone's cheering, like let's
Yeah.
go,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Talking about
Like you don't get that in your
It's like a
your
community
home
experience, you know?
Exactly.
I saw John Wick 4 the other weekend, and that theater was pretty full. And there was a scene in that movie, I'm not going to say what it was, but people were, like, the whole movie, people were, like, going crazy. But that one scene, the collective audience went all, like, they were all like, oh, no, oh. Like, all of us were like, oh, my God,
That's
no.
so-
and it was like, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you don't get that at home. It's like you get like you're sharing an experience with a bunch of other people who never met. Like that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
And also, I want to bring up like Minions: Rise of Gru. I would have never saw that movie if it just came out to streaming, but because all the I'm not sure if I remember the meme of
Yeah.
wearing,
Minions?
yeah, just the Minions
Mhm.
is wearing a suit and bring banana to the theater.
Yeah, some of my friends did that.
I didn't bring banana, but I wore a suit to that theater with like a bunch of my friends. It was probably like hands down best movie experience ever that I had. I'm not even joking. It's above Spider-Man, above Avengers, like because like I talked to other people there, like other people wearing suits. I'd walk up and say, "Hey, how's it going? How you doing, gentlemen?"
Yeah.
Like it was, and everyone's cheering the
So-
entire movie. Like you just don't get that at like
Yeah.
you know on like Disney Plus or HBO Max. It's just like I mean, sure, maybe your family or friends, but like you got to have a whole theater packed. And you're sharing experience.
Gotta be strangers.
That's how it is with, like, when you see movies like The Room or, like, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, like, cult movies, and you go to a theater, especially when, like, they're not being played all that often, like, neither of those movies are in theaters that often. You go there, and the people that are going there are, like, fans, and then
Yeah.
everybody's going crazy. Like, I saw The Room in the theater, and, like, he says, like, there's, like, a picture of a spoon, and whenever that would happen, people would throw spoons at the screen. And I was like, this is crazy. This is such a cool experience, and it was wild.
And like whenever you see that movie again in the future, if there's a picture, a photo, or like even just the movie like in general, like you remember that first time experience watching it. So for example, like Soul, like it was a good movie, but like I don't remember anything that was going on. But then you get like I don't know, back to Minions: Rise of Gru, like I just remember when I think of a movie, I'm like, yo, that was so much fun. Like I wish we could do that all again. I want this to happen again. Like I'd actually pay money to have that experience again.
Yeah.
It's a
Like
different
the
experience.
movie was okay. It was just the experience of going to the theater. All these other people you know and don't know. Like that doesn't. You can't get that with streaming services. I'm sorry.
Maybe that's where we'll see a change in theaters. Instead of showing, maybe theaters will start. You kind of already see this with AMC. I think other theaters do it too. But they start to show more like they'll show older movies that have more of a cult following.
Oh yeah, they've been doing that a lot.
Mhm.
I think it's a good thing that they're doing that. I think it was a good idea.
It's a good experiment.
Yeah.
Just to see where it goes.
Yeah. But hopefully that works out because I do really like theaters. I agree with everything we've been saying. So.
So bottom line, I want to say, I guess we kind of all agree on this, but it's not the end, but the end is near.
Yeah.
It's
If it keeps going the way it's going,
Yeah.
if something doesn't change, then maybe it's not looking too hot.
movies are fine. It's just the theaters in general that are. We'll still have at least one theater in the area, but some people might have to drive like a whole hour just to go to a theater.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the same thing with the drive-ins. It's like the closest drive-in's kind of far away.
Yeah.
So the same is going to happen to the just theaters in general. There might be an AMC here and there, but
Yep.
it's looking like streaming is our future. But thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you for having us, Matt.
Of course.
Lovely to be here.
That's going to wrap up this podcast. I hope you all enjoyed this commentary. Stay safe out there and have a good one. Peace.